Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Hello. My grandmother got married in 1962 to a young man in the military. For a wedding present, their parents bought them a house in a nice suburb. White picket fence, whole 9 yards. Not long after they moved in, the next-door neighbor planted a mulberry tree on the side of his property, near my grandparents' driveway. Nothing seemed amiss, but if you know mulberry trees, you know that crab is about to get real. About 15 years later, the mulberry tree was obnoxious. The birds would come and eat the berries, and any car parked in the driveway would get crapped on, and it would stain the cars and ruin paint job. My grandmother, upon realizing the culprit, baked a nice apple pie, walked next door and asked the neighbor if he'd mind trimming back the branches of the tree that hung over her driveway. He told her not to worry, he'd get to it soon. 3 days later, my grandmother opened her door to find a half-eaten pie in a plate crawling with ants and a note that said, "I changed my mind." My grandmother threw out the pie, cursing up a storm and swearing up and down she'd get him to trim that tree or get him back. City ordinance said she could not trim the tree as the roots were on his property, so the whole tree was his property. As the years went by, my grandmother repeatedly asked him, ever so nicely, to trim it back. His responses were always along the lines of no and F off. Finally, in the mid-90s, my grandmother retired and received a large bonus from her employer for her 35 years of work. She took the money and bought the empty lot on the other side of the neighbor, then went to a nursery and bought 60 mulberry trees, planting them along her property line on both sides of his property. About 3 years ago, he became angry at the damage they were doing to his cars and cut them all back without permission. My grandmother took him to court and he was forced to reimburse her for the trees at a markup because they had had 10 years to grow. So I have this cousin, let's just say his name is Jordan. Basically, Jordan is lazy and feels entitled to handouts. Because he's the youngest, he's a family favorite of grandma, and Jordan knows it. I found out that when he turned 17, he purposely told me he manipulates the system. He goes as far as acting like he's really dumb and pretty much convinces grandma to buy him everything. He comes down from South Carolina to Florida every summer. He pretty much manipulates her into buying him things like a new laptop, new phone, and so on. And this is coming from grandma not having very much money at all. And he gets extremely babied. Grandma still makes his bed when he's here, and he's 19 years old now. Basically, he says that he can get whatever he wants since he's a favorite grandson. It was extra ridiculous beginning this summer. He graduated high school at almost 20 years old, he repeated the grade. It's gotten so bad that he decided he wanted Disney World for his graduation. Grandma ended up shelling tons of money and ended up buying him the Disney Platinum Annual Pass. No idea how he can use it since he will only be here in the summer. Oh, and for some reason he had to have 2 graduation parties. And he convinced grandma to buy him a higher-priced Apple Watch. Oh, and his parents always make excuses for him. Jordan is trying to get into a community college so that he can do robotics at this luxury car manufacturer. It's beyond me how he can even do it considering he chooses not to learn how to read. It is so bad that he couldn't pass the community college entrance exam with basic reading skills. He failed twice and somehow his dad convinced him to give him a 3rd try, even though he should not after failing twice. I mention this as it comes into play for my plan of revenge. I decided that enough is enough, as this stupid graduation accomplishment keeps coming up every time I go to my grandma's. Also sick of Jordan flipping me off when grandma's facing me. He's become too much of a jerk and he needs to be knocked down a peg or two. So as I mentioned, he needs to get into this community college for this robotics program he's trying to get into. I created a Google voice number for his area code, and I have a friend leave Jordan a message saying something like, "I am Tom Jones from Big Luxury Car Maker. You have been referred to me by your school on this scholarship. We want to interview you about a great opportunity and want to schedule something soon." That got Jordan all excited. So my friend who manages a Google Voice did a great job saying that Jordan needed to come up to see if he can get this scholarship soon. We wanted to bring up the point that he doesn't have to worry about being admitted to the college. The big luxury car manufacturer would admit him to college and pay for it. And I was told that his mom called in. Really, Jordan couldn't even do that. We basically wanted to convince Jordan that he needs to go back up to South Carolina. You see, his mother drives him from South Carolina to Florida and then comes down at the end of the summer to pick him up. It has to be this way since Jordan wants family handouts to get him a car. He has no intention of working. The goal is to get Jordan to go back up with his mother. We succeeded in doing this. So we hear the great news. Grandma invited us for dinner the following day and I just had to keep a straight face of hearing all the nonsense like how everyone is so proud of Jordan and he earned it. And when Jordan was alone with me, he flipped me off and said, "Screw you. You said I had to work hard to get into college. Now look at me. I'm going to be working in robotics and drive a much nicer car than you." I of course had to keep the straight face and I just shrugged and said, "I was wrong and I do apologize for it. Congrats on a big opportunity." So now Jordan is going back to South Carolina. We then hear about the big news. So Jordan goes into the interview with his mom there. Seriously, he can't even go into this interview without his mother. He goes into security and they can't find his appointment. When they give the name to the recruiter, they say no one is there at the time. Well, his mother freaked out and thought that the security was stupid or something wrong with the computers, and in the end they both had to get escorted out by security. I'm pretty sure Jordan might not even get interviewed by this big luxury car manufacturer anytime soon, even if he does the schooling needed. Oh, and I don't have to deal with Jordan draining grandma's money during the summer or having to see that pain in the butt. His parents can't drive him down due to their schedules. He gets to stay in South Carolina for the summer and work on his reading comprehension. Have fun, Jordan. I stumbled upon this subreddit not too long ago by reading some of these stories. It has reminded me of an encounter I had about 7 years ago. I was keeping a very detailed diary at that point, trauma therapy related, so I have all the details logged as well as all the information I got afterwards. A little bit of background is in order here. I grew up in a very abusive household. Berating, gaslighting, emotional blackmail, hitting, screaming were all on a daily basis for the first 23 years of my life, until I had finally saved up enough money and mustered enough courage to leave that hellhole of a place. I have moved to a different town, about 2 hours by train, found myself a small apartment and a quiet job as an office assistant. I have also started therapy as soon as I settled in to become more of a person instead of a pile of poo my parents made me believe I was. Now, unpacking all the baggage wasn't easy, and in the first 2 years of therapy, I was a wreck. High-functioning but still a wreck. I was diagnosed with CPTSD, depression, anxiety, and a couple other things on top. I was fortunate enough to have such understanding colleagues, and at least didn't have to worry about my job or income on top of everything. With that out of the way, let's get to the actual encounter. It was about 10 months after my move. One Saturday, after a really long crying episode, I went to the fridge to find out it was empty, save for a lone pickle in a jar. And I needed to go get some groceries if I don't want to live on crackers and pickle water. I totally wasn't in any shape to go anywhere where there might be other people, but it was my fault for postponing the trip for so long. So I have just pushed myself to get dressed, brush my teeth and hair, grab a shopping basket, and go to the nearest supermarket, which was incidentally the same chain I was working in part and full-time when I was still living with my parents in the other town, which really wasn't surprising since the chain is in like every bigger town. So I walk into the shop already shaken and anxious and trying not to attract any attention to myself whatsoever. I grab a bit of produce, a carton of milk, several packets of ham and cheese, some yogurt, and I'm almost done. Just a bag of sugar, some pasta, and ketchup, and I can bolt to the register. I am telling myself when someone taps me on the shoulder, and I'm immediately triggered, meaning most of my system shut down in order not to do something stupid. I slowly turn around to see an angry-looking woman that could be my mother, which is acting as another trigger. nervously tapping her foot on the floor. Can I help you? I managed to get out through the fog because my polite system stays operational at all times. About time you noticed me. I've been talking to you for about 3 damn minutes by now. Where is that coffee that is supposed to be on sale? It takes me a while to process what she was saying and formulate an answer. I don't know. I don't drink coffee. What do you mean you don't drink coffee? I didn't ask you to drink it, you dimwit. I asked you where I can buy it. Well, at this point, the lady is practically screaming at me, at which point I start to back away from her, and then everything goes blank. The next thing I knew, I was staring at a hospital ceiling with a throbbing pain at the back of my head, and a nurse leaning over me, asking me how I'm feeling, to which I'm asking her what day and time it is, and what the hell happened. She frowned and said, "It's Sunday, 8 p.m, and apparently you hit that shelf pretty hard." I just let myself fall asleep again because I seriously wasn't in any shape to think straight at that point. On Monday, my therapist came, helped me call my workplace since I definitely wasn't coming to work for a couple of days. Then 2 police officers came in to take my testimony and ask if I wanted to press charges, which has taken me aback. Like me, suing someone? For what? Apparently after I started backing away from the woman I shot down for good, and started frantically pleading with her to please not hurt me, while she continued to scream and close in on me, until I could not step back any further, at which point she got so upset she grabbed my shirt and yanked me to her to be close to my face, to which I have instinctively reacted by pushing her away with as much force as I could. Since she didn't expect retaliation, she lost her balance, let go of my shirt, and we both went backwards. She landed on the tile floor, bruising her butt, while I hit the shelf behind me head first. The security guard or one of the employees got there at about the same moment, so they saw us fight and fall. The security guy went to help the Karen, still screaming at the top of her lungs that she wants me fired for being rude, while I was curled up on the floor, hands around my bleeding head, crying and promising I'll be good, just don't hurt me anymore. Anyway, police and paramedics came. Officers scooped up Karen after seeing the camera footage, while paramedics scooped me up and got me to the hospital with a fine brain concussion. It turned out that Karen was originally from the same town as me and saw me working at the supermarket there regularly, so when she happened to be in a different town, it didn't occur to her that I am not working in that particular store. And since she was somehow acquainted with my mother, who most likely told her what a piece of crap I am, she treated me accordingly. Or at least, that's my conclusion. To this day, I am not aware of any other interaction between us and this. I ended up pressing the charges after consulting my therapist. I think Karen got charged with assault, destroying property, and something I don't really remember and apparently didn't bother writing down. I ended up in jail for 2 years since I got head injury, and my lawyer didn't miss the opportunity to throw in my mental health state as well. I didn't set foot in that supermarket for at least a year afterwards. Just bought a new shopping basket and went elsewhere. When I eventually did go back, I ran into that employee that was there during the incident, and they told me a couple of details the police and the doctors omitted, like the part where I was crying and begging on the floor. It's 2020, unfortunately. It's the day after my 2 younger sisters and I flew out to Pennsylvania to see my dad, who lives there after getting divorced by my mom for 15 years of not being a good husband or dad. He lives with his mom, cranky grandma, and her devil cat, as well as my amazing aunt and her angel kitten. Dad gets home from work. "Where is Emma?" he asks my cranky grandma. "She's in the basement," cranky grandma says, probably throwing in a snide comment or two about the newly dyed purple hair adorning my head or the leather fingerless gloves that have joined my black wardrobe. "Looking for some Christmas ornaments." Dad goes down the basement stairs and finds me rummaging through the cardboard boxes. "What are you looking for?" he says. "Hi, Dad," I say. "Well, I noticed that you decorated for Christmas, but you're missing a few things. Where are the mooses?" The mooses are a pair of stuffed mooses that have been put up every Christmas since I can remember. They are brown, about 2 feet tall, and soft as a marshmallow. There is Mama Moose, who is named Mary, holding Baby Moose, who is named Christmas, and is in a red velvet sack reading "Merry Christmas" on it in gold embroidery. The mooses always go on the couch to watch over the living room and all the decorations and presents in it while we were asleep. The problem with the Moses is that when my mom divorced Dad, she was so scared of him that she let him have almost everything. This included the Moses and quite a few more of her treasured ornaments. And since I've always been the one to sit the Moses on the couch, at first Christmas with a divorced Dad just didn't feel right without them. Dad helped me look for the Moses for a while. "Sorry, sweetie, they must have gotten lost in the move," he says that. I smile and don't tell him that I hate being called sweetie. "It's okay," I say, and pull out a cardboard box. "We go sit up for Christmas in the living room," I then say. "I think I'm going to go take a nap." Dad says, "Okay." I go upstairs and into my room and shut the door. I walk over to the window seat storage chest under the window and I opened it. "Hello, Moses," I say. The Moses lay on top of my stuffed animal collection looking dusty. Several other ornaments I recognize as Mom's are keeping them company. I grin and shut the chest. It's the day we fly back to my home state. I had the Moses packed away in my suitcase and the other ornaments tucked beside them, wrapped in my fluffiest but still black hoodie to protect them. I roll my suitcase out to the hallway. Dad is weighing younger sister's bag to make sure it's under 50 pounds. "Okay, now I need to check it to make sure you're not stealing any of my stuff," he tells her. My mind says, oh no. My brain gives me uncomfortable memories of how Dad raged when he thought one of us had stolen his coffee mug. My voice says, "Privacy invaded" in 3, 2, in a joking tone. Dad and youngest sister laugh. Dad does not check anyone's suitcase. We are at the airport. Young sister's suitcase is somehow 3 pounds over the weight limit. Dad says, "Emmy, grab one of the suitcases that already went through and open it up. We will put some of younger sister's stuff in there." He gestures to my suitcase. My mind makes an ear-splitting screeching noise that sounds like someone slammed their brakes to avoid hitting a pterodactyl and hit the pterodactyl anyway. My brain imagines Dad opening the suitcase and going into a rage at the sight of the Moses. My voice says, "Sure, Dad." My hands grab youngest sister's suitcase instead of mine and pass it over. Dad opens it. Her suitcase contains no smuggled goods. We transfer the stuff and the very nice airport lady sends all the bags down the conveyor belt. Dad asks why I wave to mine. I shrug. "Just being weird," I say. "Good luck, Moses," my mind says. We're back home, my family, my older sister who didn't go with us, Mom, my other grandma, who we will call Maga, and my Baba, or Grandpa, are all sitting in a living room catching up. I say, "I'm disappointed you took the tree down already." Older sister laughs. "Well, it's past New Year's." "I know," I say, "but I brought some stuff to put on it." I open my suitcase and I show around the ornaments I smuggled back. 3 tiny stuffed snowmen, our cat's catnip stuffed cat ornament, a white clay angel, a wooden rocking horse, a wooden mouse king, a clay snowman, and my older sister's stuffed dog. When I unveil the rocking horse, Maga gasps. "I bought that for your mother when she was little," she exclaims. "How did your dad get it?" "Well, that's not everything," I say. I unzip the flap hiding the Moses from view. I pull out the Moses. Older sister and Baba clap. "How did you get those back here right under your dad's nose?" My older sister asks. Maga laughs so hard she has tears in her eyes. The tears in Mom's eyes are not from laughter. Slowly she reaches out and takes the Moses, hugging them to her chest. Over their antlers she mouths, "Thank you." And then she gets up and she sits the Moses down on the couch, right where they belong. This is a family-style revenge, so get ready. My grandma had lived down the road from us since before I could remember. He would always play with me and my sister when my mom had to work, and I thought of him as my second father. He kept a really expensive platinum necklace on as a keepsake from my grandmother, as he always told me stories about her and the wars he served. Some backstory now on my aunt's family. They were basically people who refused to work, and they were actually proud of scamming the government to pay for their lifestyle. Through benefits, they would falsely claim a mental disability and being obese as a justification not to work. at the time getting as much as my mom would at her full-time job. My cousin had literally texted me at the time that he doesn't want to work and play on his Xbox. This witch, you're a grown 26-year-old man. Act it. They never visited my granddad, and for good reason. He was physically disgusted with a lot of them. So here's when the story starts. My granddad winds up in a hospital due to a heart attack. My mom, my sister, and me show up to care for him. After 3 days, and when the doctor explains that he hasn't gotten much time left and to say our goodbyes, my evil aunt rocks up with her family. So much for being so ill you can't drive to get a job. They ask how much time he has left. Us, wanting to be civil, told him and let them in to talk to him. He then passes away after another day, and we get together to decide how he would want his funeral. Since my gran was buried in Cornwall, we decided to hold the ceremony there so that they can be buried together. Cornwall was about 300 miles away, but we thought it would be worth it, and I still lay down flowers every year. Evil aunt and her family not only do not want to go down to Cornwall, they refuse to chip in even 50 pence down for anything. So they decided to stay up and watch his house. I know, red flags, but we were mourning, so we didn't think it through. The funeral was beautiful. Heartfelt eulogies, a prompt memory after a beautiful memory. All was well, except they had dug the wrong plot and they decided to tell us during, maybe one of Grandpa's way of making us laugh up there. Until we got home and found it empty. Anything of value was gone, and the only thing left behind was some paintings from my grandma. She was a really good artist, and me liking art as well, I decided to keep them. We were pissed. We went to the evil aunt and she denied everything. We had nothing on her at the time, so we decided to file a police report and left it at that. Until 3 weeks later, when we came round to visit and see if everyone was coping. My mom had noticed some new expensive things. New TV, new PlayStation, and the works. And she began to suspect something. As well as me and my sister, until the evil cousin comes in and he's wearing my granddad's platinum necklace. I asked him where he got it from, and he told me he had bought it with some money he got from selling pot. Yes, he sold pot as well, but I know that's my granddad's necklace. We get in the car and all of us are seething. They are no longer family. We needed revenge. Now, I mentioned before that they have been falsifying their medical records so that they could receive benefits from the government. Every time we would go over, we sneakily take photos of everything they had just bought, as well as my entitled cousin's stash of pot and my uncle's collection of stolen goods. Forgot to mention he would steal big items off of vans and then sell them online for an extra profit. We collected every text message of them bragging about their many fancy holidays and them refusing to want to work, compiled a case report, and anonymously sent it to the claimant investigators and let them do their jobs. A month later, I hear from one of my other cousins. She's a nice girl, training to become a nurse, and I really admire that she didn't take the path of her family. That evil aunt and uncle got their benefits taken off of them and had criminal charges pressed against them, and also had to pay restitution to the businesses they stole off. My entitled cousin got arrested to dealing pot. They are now financially screwed. I think the last time I talked to them, they were asking for money. Since I came from a well-off family, they thought I could convince my mom. Well, she doesn't want to speak to them, and I told them to get lost. This lovely story is once again due to my mother's side of the family, and took place when mom was around 13 years old and still in the sea of cornfields that is rural Iowa. My mom is one of the girls that bloomed early and was always a bit boy crazy. It came with a normal amount of looks from the other kids, but she's always been pretty blunt about it being pretty inoffensive to her sensibilities. Though there was a teacher that gave her crap for it, but that'll be a different post. However, there was this one boy that she turned away. We can call him Tim since it has some of the similar letters. He was absolutely furious about this turn of events and turned to bullying my mother, calling her names and going so far as to physically push her around. After about a year of this treatment and various conversations with a teacher, it came to a climax when he followed her to the bathroom and pinned her to the wall and kissed her. Tim's parents were involved and they were horrified and immediately took him out of school. Mom told me that he was sent off to a super uptight Catholic school that wasn't far away. He did reach out to my mom in adulthood to apologize, and it turned out there was some really bad home situation going on. Creepy uncle. He's doing much better now. Mom sent him a fruit basket as a peace offering when he got married. However, the revenge isn't really about the kids. No. The principal decided to be a dummy to my grandma in regards to the situation. Once it was clear that Tim's parents were pulling him out of school, the principal turned to my grandmother and laughed. It was all a joke. You should really appreciate his sense of humor. Tim's parents went wide-eyed and got out ASAP as my grandma began to chew him out for how my mom, getting bullied, isolated, and assaulted was not a part of anyone's sense of humor. And this is when the pro-revenge started. My mom is the youngest of 5, and 3 of her elder siblings were in the grades above her and in the same building. Systematically, each sibling made issues for the school. The eldest, who was still in school anyway, who was one of the lead singers in the choir and seen as a very trusted and perfect student, was well trusted by the teachers. Answer keys were lost, altered, and no one was the wiser. Teachers were under fire and unwilling to admit that they had a student helping them in their classes. The second eldest, who was a seamstress and a much more outwardly stubborn individual, made it her duty to raise a big stink about anything that seemed even the littlest bit out of line. She grew up to be an activist that helps paint the picture. She complained that the food was of horrible quality, that the playground wasn't safe, and that certain teachers were playing favorites. And then there was my uncle. My uncle is a rebel of the family. He's probably more stereotyped as a stoner troublemaker type. He started vandalizing certain parts of the school. After a string of little pranks, he got caught putting a sticker on a fire alarm that said "pull and run." The principal, growing increasingly upset about the trouble that was rising in his domain, jumped on a situation and called a meeting between my uncle and my grandparents. My grandma strutted in like the boss which she was and listened to the principal foam at the mouth about all the pranks and other issues that my aunts and him caused. Grandma smirked and shot off a single statement that quieted any sort of argument for the rest of my mom's elementary career. It was just a joke. You should love his sense of humor. Well, he retired at the end of that year. Prefacing this was the information that 1. My grandma has too much money. 2. My grandma has too much time. 3. My grandma has too big of a freezer. And 4. My grandma is so pretty. The story. I have a cousin who's always wanted all sorts of interesting things for his birthday. Grandma loved that, absolutely adored it. She gave me a blow-in-the-butt turtle ocarina once and I love it. That should explain her gift for you. Now, as he grew up, he was less and less inclined to entertain Grandma's whimsical ideas and started requesting more mainstream presents. Grandma hated that and still found ways to make them whimsical. You want a guitar? Okay, but it'll have hippie wood burning patterns on it. You want bed sheets? Sure thing, but they'll have tie-dye prints all over and be made of silk. If it was possible to make a gift, a whimsical grandma would do it. We all knew this and started getting awfully specific in what we requested until one year he threw his hands up and said, "I don't know, just give me cold hard cash." Bad move, very bad move. Grandma has chest freezers, the kind that are 4 feet deep, 4 feet across, and 12 feet long. Grandma also lives on a little foresty cottage plot, which means Grandma has access to all sorts of gardening tools and tinkers. So Grandma, being Grandma, found a big bucket, a ton of little plastic seed bags, and got to work. Cousin, of course, was very excited to finally get a normal gift. I was grinning at Grandma, thinking that he finally won the game. That is until Grandma brought out a 2 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet squared ice cube full of cash. Edited to add, measurement might be off. She used some sort of gardening bucket, and I was very young when it happened. The story has been retold by Grandma so many times that I don't think she remembers the exact measurements either. It wasn't frozen together either, oh no. Grandma had gotten creative and layered the ice gradually, freezing the cash solidly through the cube. This thing was icy white and oozing. When brought into the room and Grandma proudly announced that since he wanted cold, hard cash, she gave him exactly that. This mad woman froze the equivalent of $1,000 in the ice and mixed money. There were tiny coins and bigger coins and bills in little seed bags near the center. It took the block about a week to melt because my cousin's birthday is in January, and his mother refused to let it melt in-house for the fear of water damage. So it sat in their garage slowly melting. Edited to add, bathtubs aren't common where I'm from, and they didn't have one. Moral of the story, don't screw with Grandma and her whimsical presents. This happened about 5 years ago when I was a senior in high school, around the age 17 to 18 for those not familiar with the American education system. I was working as a cashier at our local grocery store. It was a late afternoon rush, so lines for my check stand were 3 to 4 shoppers deep despite our store having almost all of the tills in service. Enter the nasty lady who queues up in my line. She appears to be in her mid-70s and has apparently never experienced the hold-up at the grocery store before because she was loudly complaining to anyone who would listen about the horrible nuisance of having to wait a few minutes. She was clearly making others uncomfortable with her remarks and not helping the situation for all of us. Being the speedy cashier I was, in no time I was beginning her order. Despite her behavior, I greet her with a smile and the savvy sweet tone those who worked in retail are all too familiar with. Hello, ma'am. How are you doing today? Pack them light. Excuse me? You heard me. I said I want my grocery bags packed light. Can't you see I'm an old lady? I can't lift much. Absolutely, not a problem. I scan her items as quickly as I can to get her on her way and out of my hair. I total the order and she proceeds to write a check, of course. As she does this, I begin bagging up her things. I fill the bags with about half of the weight I normally would put into a bag, as this had previously abused others with the same request. I began to think this would be the end of my interaction with her when this nasty lady suddenly stops what she's doing and pollutes the air with more of her crap. Are you stupid? Is there a problem? I told you to pack them light, but apparently you can't comprehend that. She begins to hastily throw items out of bags I've already packed, while I just pause for a moment dumbfounded by the audacity of this lady. Suddenly, I have a light bulb moment on how I could lay down some well-deserved malicious compliance. I couldn't hold back my big grin as I looked her dead in the eyes and proceeded to put a single item into each bag. Can of beans into a single bag and slid down the counter. Tomato into its own bag. Even something as light as a box of Jell-O. You guessed it. There were around 30 to 40 individual bags in her cart when it was all said and done. Through the whole process, the nasty lady's gaping jaw was priceless. Truly a rare win for a measly retail worker. I was now genuinely smiling as I handed her the receipt and returned to my savvy sweet tone to wish her a good day. The fate of the lady quickly leaves without another peep. The experience actually made my day. I was topped off with a compliment from my next customer for my patience. Years ago, I was a paramedic and worked for a hospital in my city. My uniform was blue pants and a blue polo shirt was the name of the hospital, and it also says Emergency Medical Services underneath that. So I wear blue work pants with the extra pockets like cargo pants, and I have my stethoscope around my neck. I'm in the automotive section looking for light bulbs for my car. I'm on my phone, chatting and looking up which parts I need when someone taps me on the shoulder kinda aggressively, which immediately pisses me off. I turn around. The delusional lady asks me, "Where are the regular light bulbs at?" I blank stare at her because I was confused at first. I said, "Where are the regular light bulbs at?" Yes, she started yelling at me, which pissed me off. A 5'9", 235-pound muscular guy. I only mention this because 1. I was a gym rat back then, and 2. She was maybe 5 feet. at 100 pounds on a good day. I pointed to my neck and my chest because, well, you treat me like an idiot, I reply in kind. What is that supposed to mean? I want to know where the light bulbs are. I say, did you see? But she cuts me off. You want to get smart with me? Fine. I'll find your manager, you idiot. I am seeing red by now and I yell at her, get out of my face and don't touch me again, you witch. She runs away and I go back to shopping. Few 2 minutes later and she's got a poor manager who looks flustered in tow and points to me. There is your employee. He threatened me. The manager looks at me and at her incredulously and says, he's a paramedic. He doesn't work here. Yes, he does. Look at the uniform. I am calling the cops. Do what you want, but it's clear from his stethoscope and emblem that he's a paramedic, not one of our employees. He threatened me. You have it on camera. I say, well, let's see the cameras where you approached me and started yelling at me first and then me yelling back at you but never actually approaching you. I think the police will be really interested in you physically touching me and technically assaulting me. Well, I am going to call your work and tell them what you did. Go ahead. Here is a pen with our number on it. Ask for X, my boss. But before you do, know that I am almost done school for something different. And I'm about to quit anyway. I hold the pen out to her and she mutters and huffs and puffs away. The manager asks me, are you okay? I'm fine. The manager just shakes his head and says, when you're done grabbing your stuff, I'll be at this section. I'll ring you up. It was close to the holidays, so the lines were super long. Because, well, it's Walmart. I got my things and I checked out in record time. As I'm leaving the store, I see the lady with a few items, and the only lines open are the regular lines. No express. I walk by and hold up my bag and give her the biggest grin and wave. Her face became redder than a tomato with anger.